the property management company. I leaned on them to look at what kind of vetting they did.
Oh my gosh, how devastating. This is absolutely devastating.
It is devastating. And so these are the things that I was unaware of. Yeah. And I did lean on them to stand behind their actions. I felt they violated their fiduciary responsibility to me. It turned out they never vetted him. There was no vetted file. They didn't even pull a credit report. Wow. So I'm not too sure what transpired behind the scenes, but I found myself in a civil legal action with them for 18 months, trying to hold them responsible for putting a tenant in there that probably should not have been there to begin with.
Do you think renting out your property is safe? Well, there's a hidden contaminant that could leave it unsellable and cost you everything. And it's not hype. This is a true story that led to a preventative legislation. Hello and welcome back to Talking with Teri TV. I am so grateful that you're joining us today. In today's Business Spotlight, where we highlight unstoppable entrepreneurs who are empowering others, my guest has a shocking story of resilience and advocacy. Kathi McCarty founded Meth Toxins Awareness Alliance after her cherished family Colorado home was destroyed by meth contamination. She was left with devastating financial and personal losses, but instead of giving up, she turned her pain into purpose, leading a movement to protect property owners, tenants, and communities from the hidden dangers of meth contamination. Welcome, Kathi.
Thanks for having me, Teri.
I'm super excited to dive into this. So, Kathi, we've known each other for a little bit, and it's been powerful to watch your journey going through this. So, tell us about that moment when you discovered your home, which you rented out in 2018, had become contaminated by meth.
It was a shocking moment for sure. I can't sugarcoat the impact, but I did choose to temporarily rent out my family home, our family home, after a serious health event that I had. And it was only supposed to be short term. And then within 90 days, I learned that the temporary tenant placed by a property management company had turned my home into a meth lab.
Oh no, yeah, and 90 days?
90 days.
Wow. So after 90 days, how did you discover?
Sure. Yeah, it's an interesting story, and I do feel that my cabin had somewhat of a divine intervention. I had what I was told was minor maintenance issue at the home that had to do with a water pipe. And what I learned after I found out from a text that there was some digging going on, I went up to the property, and it wasn't minor. There was an excavator on the property.
Wow.
There was
from the renters. The renters just.
The property manager had ordered an excavator without any consult with me, right? And there was a excavated hole several foot wide, several foot deep, 10 foot long, and that was anything but a minor repair, right? And then that led to me walking around the property after I dealt with that initial discovery.
Yeah.
I discovered equipment behind the home that I could not recognize. There was some buckets, there was some propane tanks, there was hoses, there was some steel cylinders, and that ended up being a THC extraction system. He was extracting THC from cannabis and turning it into these products, and I had some photos from that, took it to the local sheriff's substation, where they engaged our local drug task force, West Metro Drug Task Force, and they served a search warrant within a couple days, and that's when they found the equipment, the hardware, the chemicals, and well over 800 grams of meth, along with a small arsenal of guns and a lot of other drugs. There was a lot going on.
Wow. Wow. Okay, so bring us full speed. So from that point, what was that journey like for you?
Sure. Well, he was arrested eventually on a multitude of criminal counts, and he was looking at 32 years for what he was doing in my home.
Wow.
That's separate from that. I had to actually go through an eviction process to gain access to my home again, and then bring in. I had to learn about what what happens to a property when meth is manufactured. It turns out that there's a residue that is very toxic, very dangerous, and I had to order testing. I had to learn about the certification process that meth testing companies go through. I had to learn about the state regulations with our health department here in Colorado, and I literally had to jump through 100 huge hurdles within the first 100 days. When I did select a meth testing company and had them go through their due diligence, I learned that my property was so contaminated that it was actually irreparably, it could not be cleaned, it could not be remediated because it was a cabin, and it's very porous, and there's a lot to that, but the bottom line is my home was condemned and it could not be cleaned and
what does that mean?
Safe.
Does that mean they just tear it down?
Well, that was, that's something that in retrospect I look back on and wonder if I should have done that. But one of the things that was really impactful for me that I learned is I had put all the right provisions in place to have a tenant there, but I learned that our insurance policies most of the time do not cover, there are exclusions in our homeowners policies for contaminants, and meth toxins is one of them. So I didn't have any coverage. And then I did lean on the tenant's policy, and because of his criminal action, his willful conduct, his policy was void too. So I was left holding the financial bag and all that too.
Wow.
And
you when you have a property management company, you feel like they're going to do their due diligence,
right?
But there's really no protection. It sounds like there was no protection, not only from you, as from your homeowners, insurance, but also from the property.
The property management company. I leaned on them to look at what kind of vetting they did.
Oh my gosh, how devastating. This is absolutely devastating.
It is devastating. And so these are the things that I was unaware of. And I did lean on them to stand behind their actions. I felt they violated their fiduciary responsibility to me. It turned out they never vetted him. There was no vetted file. They didn't even pull a credit report. So I'm not too sure what transpired behind the scenes, but I found myself in a civil legal action with them for 18 months, trying to hold them responsible for putting a tenant in there that probably should not have been there to begin with. And I was met with a lot of resistance. So there was a lot of breakdowns along the way, even though I did everything I could to protect myself as a property owner and a temporary landlord.
Yeah. And obviously, insurance didn't cover anything. Property management didn't do anything. Like, what was the true costs of this whole ordeal for you?
Well,
do I want to know?
It's hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Yeah.
I was on an accelerated payment to pay my mortgage off. I was within several years of just paying it off. I lost hundreds of thousands of dollars of equity, and I lost, and I didn't have the ability to repurchase because while I was going through this process, we were walking into the pandemic and property values in some cases had gone up 50% or more. I lost my very low interest rate, and I'm still probably about $500,000 in the hole. Wow.
Wow. All right, so tell us about, you mentioned earlier that there was a health issue that you had prior going into this, because this was just like a kind of a temporary thing. Tell us a little bit more about that piece.
Well, in 2016, I found myself with a very serious health condition. It's called Graves' disease. It's autoimmune. And ultimately, that did affect my thyroid. And then I developed something called TEDS, thyroid eye disease. And I was losing my sight. And I did have 4 eye surgeries. 2 of them saved my sight, but it left me disabled enough where I couldn't return to my career. I had a 30-plus year career in lending and banking. And I was shocked as an affiliate in the real estate industry as a lender, commercial, residential, being a homeowner ever since my first home in 1988, and I'd never even heard about meth toxins in real estate and how prevalent it really is. So that's really what's championed my desire to take this pain into purpose and really bring a dark topic into a bright light.
Yeah. Well, speaking of eyesight, right? Eyesight, 2020, but talk about what has been your takeaways? What have you, created more vision around?
Right.
What have you been able to see more clearly, if you will?
Right.
Right?
Yeah, and I joke about that.
I mean, the timing of that, sometimes the universe, God, spirit angel is like, just, has a different plan for us.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, through these wonky eyes, I see much more clearer on levels at the legislative level, where I saw that there were and still are some gaps, not just here in our state of Colorado, but nationally. I see that there's a moral compass with people individually, as well as the professional industries that serve real estate, where we're guided either by our laws or our internal moral compass.
Yeah.
And, I'm just here to really bring that education, the awareness first, and then the education using the professionals that I've been able to meet along the way.
Yeah. We're going to take a quick commercial break, and we're going to be right back with Kathi with more information on how you can protect yourself too. Want more support in creating your success story? My products can help. Check them out. First, I have my book, Be the Magic of You, Tools to Transform Your Life. And in it, I have over 70 different tools to help reprogram your brain. Next, I have my daily intentions planners. They help you create without forcing it. They combine brain science and universal laws. In addition to my book and planners, I also have 2 card decks you're sure to love, designed to support you to reconnect with your purpose, power, and potency. I also offer 2 special packages. The first is the Success Package. In it, you'll have my book and a year's supply of planners to help you bundle and save. Next is my favorite, the Empowerment Package. You can supercharge your life and business by getting all the products at one low price. But wait, there's more. I also offer a yearly subscription called the 7-Figure Business Box. Each quarter, you'll receive a physical box mailed to your home, a live 2-hour intensive training, an hour-long fireside chat with an expert in the industry, a guidebook packed with even more resources. To order anything you see here, just go to my website, talkingwithteri.com. We are back with Kathi McCarty, and we've been talking all things meth today. That's a new one for us. But share with us how this, I love how you said I turned pain into purpose, and obviously you're more passionate about this than I know anyone else. But this has led to some advocacy and also the creation and passing of legislation. Share more about that.
Sure. One of the things I learned here in Colorado when I went to go sell my own home, even though I fully disclosed it, that it was contaminated, I couldn't have it. I couldn't remediate it to the state level. So I figured maybe a builder would buy the property, scrape the cabin, and put something really nice, because it had a gorgeous view of one of our local 14ers and all that. And so what I ended up doing is realizing that the people that bought it from me, they weren't able to remediate it to the state level either, even though they knew this going into it. But they were able to follow a process that's approved with Colorado here called encapsulation. They get it down to a certain level, and then they seal the meth in with an approved product. And then they were able to sell it 5.5 months after they bought it from me, undisclosed. That's the law, because it was an approved encapsulation process, and they sold it for 5.5 months later for almost $300,000 more than what they bought it from me, more than double what they paid for it.
Wow.
And along with some improvements that they did, some remodeling.
But still not safe for the end user.
Well, that's
questionable?
That's questionable.
Okay.
I mean, the state health department says that it's healthy enough. But there's not, what I learned from the experts is that there's just not, there's just not enough real long-term data. There's just not enough long-term data to really support it one way or another. So the more I peeled back the layer of that onion and really talked to the experts who serve the industry of testing and remediation, I really knew that I wanted to get our legislation changed. That my thought is if it's so safe, what's the secret?
Well, then why do we have to undisclose that? Because this makes me really anxious, because I had a friend that just bought a house not too long ago and had black mold, and it was not disclosed, whether they didn't know about it, whatever. But she's now had long-term health issues that is ongoing.
Right.
because of that. And so I don't know what the long-term effects of having meth in, but I just think about the little babies or family homes or
Right.
I would,
all of it. And so
sad.
when you buy a home and you've had it remediated for meth, you
Yeah.
do have to disclose contaminants like mold, radon, asbestos, lead.
but not meth.
If it's a material defect, like
Yeah.
you had a foundational issue
Yeah.
or a leak, you have to disclose all that. But meth, you didn't.
Wow.
And so
But that's what you're changing, right?
that's what I attempted to change
Yeah.
in our legislation in 2023 and was met with a lot of opposition. I'm still working in that direction, but we did get one of our laws passed with the help of one of our state senators on the Senate side and House of Representatives to champion a bill that at least allowed our state health departments database of previously contaminated properties to be public facing,
Great.
along with the fact that if the home is deemed contaminated, it stays on that database for 5 years post remediation. So people can do their due diligence. I think it should stay on there forever,
I agree. Yeah.
but it's a start.
yeah.
And
You gotta
I
stay
think
somewhere.
that's really important. And one of the other things that will help renters, so if somebody moves into a home and they're a tenant, and then they start to feel the ill effects, they can break the lease and move out without breaking the
Consequences,
lease
without
to a
consequences,
penalty
yeah.
to them as well.
Yeah.
If they're the cause of the meth, then that's a whole different, Oprah.
Yeah.
but you get my point on all that.
Right.
So
So
yeah.
how are you taking this and educating, rental and real estate agent or real estate industries on this today?
Right. Well, one of the things that I started to do is gather experts in the industry of testing, and they had continuing education classes approved through our state regulatory agency called DORA, through our Division of Real Estate. And I started to gather all these people and have them teach their class. That was really good. We did it in the pandemic. We had over 500 agents online during 12 classes, but I realized there was so much more information that was missing in their class that I developed my own DORA-approved CE class to teach to realtors and property managers and any other affiliates. So I've done workshops, presentations, but CE classes now ever since early 2023.
I love this. Okay. So you have also launched a magazine called Home Zone.
Right.
And it's about living toxic free. So tell us a little bit about that piece and that project.
Home Zone magazine, we launched the first issue in June 2020, June of 2024 this year, and then we just came out with our second issue, and it's digital, it's free. My goal is to bring experts who collaborate from many different backgrounds in the legal industry, testing, remediation, health and wealth, because that's what I learned, is that this really is a significant problem that affects not just the wealth in our pocketbooks, but it's really dangerous to our health.
So how can people collaborate and connect with you regarding that piece?
That's great. I have a website, Meth Toxins Alliance.com, and they can contact me through the website, and you type in my name, I'm all over.
Because they can contribute in different ways.
I would love to talk to people. And the Home Zone, living toxin free, it starts with meth, it launches with meth. With our debut issue, I really wanted to honor the cabin, and so I'm on the front cover in my hazmat suit. I rock the hazmat suit. That's how I walked into my home for 18 months because it was so contaminated, and that's we need to bring that kind of information to the general public to really understand the true impact.
Well, and as you were saying off air really quickly, you were saying that like certain countries are really terrible, but also just like in the state of Colorado, do you know what those numbers are?
Yes, it's a real simple. If you remember, 0.5 is the number here in Colorado, and only half of our states in our nation even have any regulations about meth contamination, and the other half range from 0.5 to 1.5. and it could change.
Yeah.
And there are only a small handful of states that even require any disclosure in a real estate transaction post remediation.
Yeah.
So it's really buyer beware.
Yeah.
And I'm here to let people know that they can take proactive steps ahead of time, just like other due diligence pieces in a real estate transaction, and test before they buy.
So you've been working on this movement for quite some time now. Is there any technology or that can help sense toxins?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. One of the things that I realized early when I stood on my deck with the meth testing company that I had hired, and there really wasn't anything good back then, and so I started to work on something similar to like a carbon monoxide detector, but for meth toxins, and talk to the experts about that. I worked with an aerospace engineer. We got a provisional patent. I looked globally to see if there was anything like that, and there was a guy out in the Australia, New Zealand area that was working on technology, but I really wanted something that no matter what, if it was detected, any of the components or ingredients were detected, I would get signaled through my smartphone, right?
Yeah.
And that wasn't where I wanted it back then, but it is now. So I actually brought the guy that I was watching was developing it, and so now I represent their meth alarm. I just wanted to get it to market, get it out there as quickly as possible, and not work on something that already existed.
Yeah, there it is. Yeah.
And this is really cool because what it does is it detects it, and this is each alarm is hooked into a portal in the computer, and it tracks it, and you can set whether you have it sniff the air every 30 minutes to every 2 hours, and it'll track it and record it.
How
so if you have somebody, it really is. And so if you have, for somebody, we'll give you an example, somebody who's a landlord, and you have somebody move in that's new, you really have to establish a baseline that when they moved in, you had already had it tested. And then during the duration of their time there, you've got the records of whether there was any contaminants or not, whether it's from them or their own guests or visitors, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So if there's one more change that you would like to see in real estate and public policy regarding contamination, what would it be? And how can we start watching and to support this?
I think it's hard to go for a global change, but start with our own United States. I think there should be a national standard that we have where meth contamination is disclosed if it's been previously found to exist in any type of property that's disclosed in a real estate transaction. I would like to see that it's more of the norm versus the exception also, that people test before they buy, just like they would do a physical inspection or some other type of test like radon, which is really standard here in Colorado.
Yeah. It's curious that you've had such resistance against this, right? Like I would think that this would be just kind of, we test for everything else. Why not test for this too?
Well, we test for a lot of things, and then some people, let's talk about the pandemic. During very unprecedented times in real estate, people were waiving their physical inspections.
That's true.
And then they were buying homes, right? Then they were finding out that there were some material defects, there were some structural issues, there were other issues even outside of this. And so I just feel that we really, the price of housing is so astronomical, right?
Yeah.
And we really have to be willing and find affordable ways to do our due diligence and have standardizations where our professionals and our sellers and buyers are all on the same page.
Yeah. So where can people find more about Meth Toxins Awareness Alliance?
I would say just go to the website, methtoxinsalliance.com, and the magazine is on there, and we're putting out newsletters every week. I'm collaborating with a lot of experts in a lot of industries. What I learned through this process is that I wasn't homeless, but I was houseless.
Yeah.
Right? And I learned that home is where my heart is.
Yeah.
In the big picture of things. I have nothing but gratitude that my home itself, as much as the dangerous actions that were going and activities that were going on in my home, that it didn't blow up.
Yeah.
And put my neighbors and literally our whole community at risk.
Yeah.
So first and foremost, there's a lot of gratitude that I really want to share, and that this has sparked an amount of awareness that is already proven to have a positive impact to people who have heard about this, have tested properties that they've looked at purchasing, and some have decided to move forward and done their due diligence and purchased it anyways. Others have decided for whatever reason that they went looking elsewhere and they didn't have to adopt or take on whatever was hidden behind those walls.
Yeah. So final words of wisdom for folks that are tuning in today.
Wow. Good question. I would definitely say, please test before you buy any property, residential or commercial. You can't tell who lived in the property or what was going on beforehand. And one of the things that I learned about, especially with multi-unit properties, like apartments and condos where there's shared walls and attic spaces, is that you could have the same person live in that home for 40 years, but if you have shared spaces, cross-contamination does happen. And so just test before you buy.
I love this. Well, Kathi, thank you so much for being here today and sharing this journey, but also just instilling this hope for the future and the continued movement that you're doing to bring about awareness and also just helping people, buyers beware, right?
Thank you for having me. It's been a blessing.
So if this has sparked some of your curiosity, make sure that you leave a comment and share with a friend. And again, I am Teri Karjala. Thank you so much for tuning in. As always, be bold, be brave, be fearless, be the magic of you. Massive love. Thank you for joining me today. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Make sure you hit that notification bell to find out about my upcoming shows. Thank you for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time.